Hi, my name is Lucky Wakwe, and I'm part of YF2. As you can see, YF2 core team. For some of you, you would want to ask to know how or why did I join the YF2 core team? The answer is very simple and straightforward. For me, I joined the YF2 core operational team from my experience um, from the community of YF1. Originally, I had joined the YF1 movement at the initial, or sometimes around a little bit late to an extent. But upon seeing some of the activities of what was happening in YF1, I knew there was a need for some form of a more community governance kind of system, something that would resonate with the entire public. However, my dream and goal for decentralized finance is something I have always taken to heart. I always believe in a future where people will be able to access finance in a much more decentralized manner. I'm an advocate of open finance per se. Now, I joined the operational team of YF1 after after the forking of YF1 into YF2. I joined the operational team of YF2, especially from the part of the core team, the part of the operations team, the part of the marketing, the part of the governance team, virtually almost all the various teams that were involved in the operations of YF2. We run via a DAO system. For most persons, they want to probably know what is a DAO system. It's just simply decentralized autonomous organizations where people from all around the world can contribute towards a particular goal without having to be in the same place. And for me as a person, when we saw the level of how Lies the World Whale movement was taking advantage of the activities of YF1, we knew there was need for us to change a lot of things. And I resonate with the part of community governance. I resonate with the part of allowing the people to have some form of a fair share in the entire process, and not just necessarily wealth control. So when David White had put up the proposal for us to fork off YF1 into YF2, I knew like there was no going back for me, and I believed in the vision of what I had seen in YF2. So that led me to being an ardent key player within the YF2 community. So these have been my take for in terms of my working operational status with other core team members or colleagues. I have worked very closely with a lot of them, especially from the part of David White or Bao, Dovey Wang, Domi, Kay, Tilts, quite a lot of them that time might probably not permit me to mention them. Quite a lot of them were so much number that it was pretty obvious that the community wanted change. That's why most of us migrated or moved out from YF1 into YF2 at a time, especially from the part of the community side. I have maintained a very good cordial relationship with virtually everybody in the team, inclusive of my daily contributions and team non-stop operations in terms of how we'll move YF2 to the right point. Well, we know for sure that what we have in YF2 is the best of yen finance as we know it. And we believe in the work of Andre Crozier. He's been a great guy and he was very supportive, inclusive of the time when we even forked off YF1. Andre Crozier have been very nice and good, even though we don't share a personal one-on-one conversation as the case may be. We've looked up to him as a person, as an individual, more like a mentor from afar. That has been the case. But for the other rest core team members of YF2, I've maintained a very good core relationship with them, and most of them already know. Like I'm one of the few persons that have always continued to push for growth, positivism within YF2 as a community. And I try to take everything very calm and very quiet and peaceful as much as possible, because that's my nature. And that has been the case. what is YF2 and how is it different from traditional equity um, project that we know as at today? YF2 is simply Yen Finance 2, which is a fork of Yen Finance 1. We different from the traditional equity as you know them before now in quite a lot of ways. There are quite a lot of different ways to which we are different from it, inclusive of the governance style, inclusive of the style of how the project is run, inclusive of the fact that we're not centralized like the traditional private equity as you know it. We're also different from it in terms of the market or the reach of people we serve. We don't discriminate against anybody, and we don't have some form of class or category of persons we can serve. It's an open thing that is available for anybody to try or who wants to try. And that have been one key differentiator between us. But if I have to go deep into how's this project different from a traditional private equity firm, for those of us who understand what private equity it's all about, the terms could be used just to describe business of taking company into private ownership in order to, just something like structure it before selling it again at a point where you hope for profit. But for Yen Finance too, it has not been like that. This is not a case where we need to structure the business from a centralized point of view. This is not a case of private ownership. Yen Finance too is community owned, strictly DAO governance. As you can see from my clothing here, you can see YFIIDAO, that's DAO governance. All right, we're totally decentralized. Me as a person, and quite a lot of other key people from the community have ability to put out proposals, push out for how we want things to be run. We give great power back to the people who are part of the community. There is no one center person who calls the shot per se. I could raise a proposal, you could raise a proposal, anybody could raise a proposal, so long as you're having a stake within the community, you can raise a proposal, meaning by the fact that you hold a token of it, you have the chance, the ability, you have the capacity to push up whatever thing. And if it gets more of the community votes to come in, we're always free as a core team member to always implement and push forward for that, especially as the need arises for that particular thing. For the private equity investment, generally we know they are made up of more of a private equity firm, a venture capitalist firm, or an angel investor. In the case of YF2 for us, we're not made up of that. We don't have some form of venture capitalist per se, or a venture firm, or private equity firm, or some form of angel investor that you say, oh, they had provided us this particular amount of resources at the initial stage, and therefore they own XYZ stake in what YF2 is all about. No, we're strictly DAO governance, where we don't even have any pre-mine or pre-ICO or some form of pre-dev fund before the project. Everybody started from ground zero, including us. One funny thing I keep telling people is that for most persons, when they see me or when they get to reach out to me via social handle, they sometimes think for the fact that I make up the core team of YF2, therefore there's this tendency that I hold so much token of YF2 for the fact that I'm a core team member, or I'm one of those lead people within the core team. My own YF2 token that I have is no different from any other community person out there. I paid or bought them at the initial stage, just like every other person. It was not a case of where, because I'm part of the core team or core dev and all of those kind of things from the operations, there's this special privilege that will be given to me and I would now have some form of stake. No, everybody, including from the top to the bottom, which I don't think there's anything like top, unless we probably want to refer to the top as maybe the core team operations or people who have taken it upon themselves to always help to contribute towards the growth of the community. That's what we call top. Right. So from the core team members or the people who are contributing daily, like myself and every other person within the core community, they have been contributing greatly towards the project from the top to the bottom, or from whoever the person is across the world, because our team are so diverse that we're scattered across the world, from the east to the west to the north and south, on all the corners of the globe. Um, we don't have that form of private equity kind of structure. And when we built, or when we started with the goal of making YF2 great, we didn't come up with a concept of we're building YF2 because it's just going to be the money part. We built it from the perspective of the token itself is strictly for governance, and it's actually not something um, that we built with a notion, with a concept of it's going to be worth this amount of money. But sure, because of the value we've been able to put into the project, people are now beginning to see the need why they need to hold the token as a governance, hold the governance token itself. That is the YF, to which, as of today, the maximum will never be cross 40,000 units of it. And every other person who hold it, the key primary function for it will be on side of governance. But people over time, seeing the value and the total value locked that have come into the YF2 ecosystem, a lot of persons have held the token from the perspective of being able to sell them at a later date, or being able to sell them as the demand for the token grows due to the need for people to use them for governance. Though, as I said, today, again, we still have those who probably just want to stick them into a couple of other youth farming pool. We've been able to secure more cooperation. We've been able to secure more partnership or collaborations with other projects that they want to put YF2 into the various pool where they belong. So seeing these multiple needs or creations from people across different DeFi projects have made YF2 something that everybody want to hold. And for the fact that, again, it's like a case of between Bitcoin and Ethereum, where people probably want to hold Ethereum for the fact that it has a wider use case. We see ourselves as the Ethereum of DeFi for the fact that we want to go as vast as possible. We want to build a foundation for DeFi as a space. We don't necessarily to focus on the price action, because we believe that when we build the project in a much more healthier manner, in a manner where we can gain trust, or where trust is being gained and people are able to come into to lock in their funds into the YF2 ecosystem. This way, we believe that the value of the coin will go up in terms of demand, and those who probably want to sell are still, like I said, it's strictly DAO governance. Remember, I said something like that, and the community have the final say. So for those who probably want to sell their token, it's up to them. For those who want to hold on to it, for the fact that value is now been given off it as a result of the wider use case that we continue to build and we'll keep building, it's up to them what do you want to do with it. The community have the final say in terms of determining where or how the project will go. For us, as a team, or for the core team per se, we're totally different from the traditional or private equity driven project, because no pre-fund, no form of angel investor and all of those things that you have. Every other person have built the entire project from scratch. And we also need to understand that for each of the categories of investors, as you have in the private equity, some of them have some what they call goal preference and investment strategies and all. Some form of providing some working capital to target companies. But for us as in YF2, our goal have not been from the part of what's the preference for investment strategies only. We try to build real value from the perspective of wanting to make more people use the token, from the perspective of wanting to make all the DeFi see us as a star project of DeFi within the space. And we've done quite great and tremendous amount of work so far, and we think we still will need to do more, because seeing how we've grown between the timeline, I've really been impressed myself. Like I never knew that we would at one point get to where we are today, but we'll keep pushing, and these are one key things, or if I want to put it in summary, I would say um, our governance style is different from the private equity. Our strategies are different because we also work in a decentralized manner. Our tokens are ways to which we govern, but this is not necessarily the case for most private equity project or traditional equity project as we know it. The fact that we put the community or put powers in the hands of the community also is different from the style of traditional equity as we project as we know it. From the fact again that anybody within the community, so long as you hold a token, can be able to raise a proposal and push for it, and also ensuring that things are not centralized, so there's no single person who calls the shot. The admin keys, as we all know, have been burnt and they are proof to this on the blockchain. And these are some of the key basic things that makes us different from the traditional equity system. So thanks again. Again, thank you for this key important question that you've just asked me in terms of how the community have been very broad. YFI2 having a united community and a very diverse community consensus and a large number of volunteers. Yes, I must tell you, that have been amazing for us and within the YFI2 community for the fact that I have not in the past worked in most blockchain related projects with such a number of volunteers who are always willing to give their best. Initially, I was thinking that how possible are we going to get volunteers who might be willing to work, for the fact that there were no pre-ICO, no pre-funding and all those kind of things. Are we going to get a fully DAO system? From the perspective of YF2, we've succeeded in doing or achieving that. We have one of the large, diverse volunteers so far, and I think the main reason for this have been because we share a common goal and common vision for us to build a community that will be free from what we saw from the perspective of YF1 as a well control kind of environment. We wanted to build something that would resonate with community governance. We wanted to build something that would resonate with everybody having fair and play opportunity in DeFi and youth farming per se. That shows that we all share a common goal. So when people share common vision, common goal, common aspiration and quote, it's very easy for you to have them move in the same line of direction. And that's what we've been able to enjoy. So our diverseness, the diversity of YFI2 community is strictly based on that we share common goal, common vision, common focus. And we intend to keep doing that for a very, very, very long time to come. That's basically what have made us such a prosperous project, as per se. Again, thank you for that very important question. During my time when I joined the YF2 community, what have really impressed me, knowing fully well that virtually all projects will have difficult times, and so does YF2, come along with how do YF2 overcome its own difficulties? Yes, of course, every project have difficulties, and YF2 will not be exceptional in that. From the perspective of we work from a diverse community, a community where people from different culture, different background have decided to come together to play a very key important role to ensure the growth of DeFi using the YF2 as the platform or the base for us to go. And at one point in time, I think there was this notion around people thinking that YF1 is for the English people, YF2 is for the Chinese people. But I don't think, or I don't see that in that way. It was like kind of some form of stigmatization, if I would use that word, but not really as tough as the choice of word stigmatization. However, people thought, or people took the notion that if YF1 is mainly from the team of Andre Cronje, then YF2 is nothing but the Chinese folk and all of those things. But we have people who are also within the YF2 community that are not necessarily Chinese, for example, myself. And we also have a lot of people from different places. The only thing that I think we had at that initial time was that when we proposed the fork of YF1 into YF2, we had more supporters who came from the Chinese fan base, but not because that YF2 itself is Chinese owned or something of that nature. So the stigmatization was there. So every project I think will have difficulty, but we've been able to overcome that for the fact that we've opened an open means of communication between people from all diverse culture. And I've been able to also see and understand people from the Chinese culture, people from the Arabian culture who are also part of the group, people from the Turkish culture. In fact, there was something impressive I think that happened to me. Like I wasn't really very conversant or familiar with the Turkish culture. I think because of YF2, I've been able to even get in touch with them very closely. Right. So we take every hurdle, every difficulty one step at a time, and we try to fix them without having to wait for the right time. So every time is always a good time for us, and that's how we've been able to solve our difficulty. As they come up, we will tackle them bit by bit, and that's how we've been able to solve them, inclusive of the team, inclusive of the entire community as well. Again, thanks for this another key important question, like about this thing around speaking with people from YF2, or when we hear about YF2, a lot of persons who want to compare us with YF1, which is quite good. Of course, we have some history or connections between us in YF2 and those in YF1. That's true, actually. We have a history, but comparing us, like in terms of what's the biggest difference between us and YF1 and YF2, I think for us in YF2, one of our biggest differences is the fact that we've put more powers in the hands of the community. I think this was even the major reason why we had to fuck off from YF1 in the first place, where whales, as it is rightly called within the blockchain community or within the cryptocurrency space, where whales were controlling quite a lot of things in terms of price performance and all of that. If you see us from where we are, from our all-time high right now to where we are, and as well in terms of, when I'm just talking about in terms of price action, if you see where we are right now, both in terms of price actions and how deep we currently are, as well as with that of YF2, you realize that there's more room for growth for us in YF2. So one key thing for us, or one key difference between YF2 and YF1, is that in YF2 there's more room for better growth. Looking at where we are and where we intend to be, so there's room for growth in YF2. Another key important thing for us in YF2 is that we run in a much more decentralized manner, much more community governance driven per se, much more inputs from the community to a very, 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 very large extent. That's one key important thing. We also have been able to establish that name around DeFi money, right? Where we've carved out a name for ourselves. That is not necessarily YFDs and YF that. That's why you could still see, if I turn the back of my shirt right now, you would see the word DeFi money, all right? But a good thing about us is that our style of how we run the community so far gives everybody a fairness in terms of making imputing contributions and all of that. I'm not saying if it's different or not from the YFI. I cannot hold brief more for YF1 per se. Now, again, another important question within the question you asked is, will there be a YF3 and more? All right, for us, or for me personally, I've lost count when it comes to all the YFDs and YF that. I know a lot of them actually fucked off after we moved for us to fuck off from YF1. A lot of them have fucked up, but I don't think they were fucking off from YF2. A lot of them actually fucked off again from YF1. I guess probably because they still see a lot of things that are still not right from the perspective of community governance and all of that. I think that's where most of them had actually fucked off. I've lost count, so I no longer count about the different YFDs and YF that. I know there are a lot of them out there, but I no longer follow them up to know which of the YFDs is fucking off. But majority of them so far, they were not a fuck off from YF2 community. They were actually a fuck from YF1 community. So I don't really know in terms of if there's a YF3 and all of that. But I know we're YF2, and I don't know if there's a YF3, and I don't follow up on most of those YFDs and YF that. But sure, I think I've seen a lot of YFDs and YF that, and I don't know. I probably have lost count of which of the YF I would make reference to. I think that's one thing. Are we going to see more from the perspective of YF2? We'll see more from perspective of YF2, but not from the angle of forking. Of course, we cannot stop anybody who probably wants to fork off the chain, but we'll see more from the perspective of in terms of being able to deliver more quality, more service, more products, much more robust ecosystem per se. That's where I think we'll see more, and not necessarily from the part of trying to fork the chain off or split off the original fork. So that's one key important thing for us. So if I will put it in summary, YF2, big difference between us and YF1 is that YF2 have much more huge room for growth. See us from the perspective of where you were seeing Bitcoin in the earliest 2 years, all right, of its existence. That's where you should see us, and see YF2 from the perspective of 2017 peak per se. Who knows whether Bitcoin will still do more, right? But one thing you're certain is that we in YF2 will do more, because there's room for growth, knowing fully well that at the point where we are, both in terms of price action, development, and ecosystem per se. Thank you. Okay. Thank you again for the question. Sorry, I think I lost communication at one point. That's why I had to take a few seconds. About the question around, are there any important informations that I would want to share, and in terms of every success comes definitely with a story, and for us, what is a success story? Your question has been quite strategic, and they're quite good, which shows that you really want to hit the core. And we in YF2, we're always open to making that information available to all the community out there. We know for sure that we have our success story. One of the key things that have made YF2 successful so far is that we have this collective goal, this collective ambition of making DeFi a much more popular trend, of making DeFi a success, and making decentralized finance something that is that will become available even to the common man out there, trying to provide the service of trying to provide financial service to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that is out there. That's one key thing that have made us successful. We intend to ensure that even while we try to build decentralized finance, we don't become too rigid to a point where just a few will want to control it. And that have been our drive in terms of what made us successful, including the likes of getting some major influencers within the blockchain community who are supporting us at the moment. Some are silent supporters, some are open supporters, but from their perspective, when we spoke to them or when I've had conversations with some of them, they made it clear that they like the fact that we are very, very open, that at least they are able to know that they have this DeFi that they can always count on in terms of giving everybody the opportunity to come in. So we've not gone too high from the people or the community in a manner that would not be too healthy for the ecosystem. Another thing that have made us successful is the fact that we have a much more volunteers who are targeting or who are working towards a particular common cause, and that common cause have really helped us stay focused throughout the entire process, and that has been our success story. We've had other silent developers and programmers who don't want to probably make themselves known, but they've worked quietly in the background. I think a lot of us from the YF2 core team we're a little bit more comfortable when it comes to maintaining the very low profile, including on social media per se. We just want to do the work and do less talk per se. That has been a common trend for us, and it's been quite good in terms of building per se. Sure, we'll continue to update the community more as the development goes by.